There are questions that have haunted humanity for thousands of years. Mysteries so profound that entire civilizations disappeared before solving them. Riddles that scholars spent lifetimes trying to answer, only to die without knowing the truth. And in the last 5 years, modern technology has solved 10 of them. Not gradually, not partially, completely. For 3,500 years, no one could read Egyptian hieroglyphics. The language of the pyramids, the writing of the pharaohs, completely incomprehensible. Then, in 1799, a French soldier found the Rosetta Stone. Within 23 years, we could read every hieroglyph ever written. Thousands of years of mystery solved by a single stone. For 2,000 years, the Antikythera mechanism sat at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. When divers recovered it in 1901, scientists thought it was a simple clock. It took until 2021 for X-ray scans to reveal the truth. It was an ancient computer that predicted eclipses, tracked planetary movements, and calculated Olympic Games schedules with perfect accuracy. The ancient Greeks had technology we thought was impossible until the Renaissance. For 500 years, the Voynich manuscript confused every cryptographer who studied it. Written in an unknown language with bizarre illustrations of plants that don't exist, it was called the most mysterious manuscript in the world. Artificial intelligence finally decoded sections of it. The answer shocked everyone. But here's what should terrify historians and archaeologists. These aren't ancient mysteries we're still working on. These are ancient mysteries we just solved in the last 5 years. And every answer reveals that ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we thought. Not primitives building monuments with copper tools and patience, sophisticated cultures with technology, knowledge, and capabilities that challenge everything we believe about human history. This is 10 ancient mysteries that were just solved, what the answers revealed, and why each discovery forces us to rewrite what we thought we knew about the past. One day. The Nazca lines, who built them and why for 2,000 years. Massive geoglyphs covered 170 square miles of Peruvian desert. A hummingbird. A spider. Geometric shapes stretching for miles. Perfect lines, visible only from the air. And no one knew who built them, how they built them, or why. The mystery seemed impossible. The Nazca people had no written language. No wheeled vehicles, no advanced tools, yet they created geometric shapes so precise that modern surveyors struggle to match them. Lines that run perfectly straight for miles across hills and valleys. Designs that can only be appreciated from heights the Nazca supposedly never reached. Theories ranged from plausible to insane. Ancient astronomers creating a celestial calendar, religious pathways for ceremonial processions, irrigation systems for agriculture, or according to some alien landing strips created by extraterrestrials visiting Earth. In 2022, archaeologists using ground-penetrating radar and AI analysis finally solved it. The lines weren't random art. They weren't ceremonial paths. They were a massive map of underground water sources in one of the driest deserts on Earth. Here's what the data revealed. Every major Nazca line corresponds to an underground aquifer or water channel. The monkey geoglyph marks where 3 aquifers converge. The hummingbird points to a seasonal water source that flows during specific months. The geometric shapes map the entire underground water network across 170 square miles. The Nazca weren't drawing pictures for gods or aliens. They were creating a water management system so sophisticated it still functions today. They mapped underground water sources using techniques we don't fully understand, then created permanent markers visible from high elevations where they built watchtowers to survey their territory. But here's what makes it extraordinary. The Nazca had no ground-penetrating radar, no seismic sensors, no drilling equipment. Yet they mapped underground water sources with accuracy that matches modern geological surveys. They understood hydrology, geology, and engineering at a level historians thought was impossible for pre-Columbian cultures. The Nazca lines weren't mysterious art. They were advanced infrastructure. 2. Göbekli Tepe, the temple that shouldn't exist. A Kurdish shepherd in Turkey noticed strange carved stones on a hillside. Archaeologists investigated and found something that shattered our understanding of human civilization. A massive stone temple complex built 11,500 years ago. Here's why that date is catastrophic for traditional archaeology. Humans were supposedly hunter-gatherers living in small nomadic bands. We didn't have agriculture. We didn't have civilization. We definitely didn't build massive stone temples with intricate carvings and astronomical alignments. Göbekli Tepe proved all of that wrong. 20 circular stone structures. Massive T-shaped pillars weighing 20 tons each. Sophisticated carvings of animals, symbols, and humanoid figures. Astronomical alignments tracking celestial movements. And it was built 6,000 years before Stonehenge. 7,000 years before the pyramids. The mystery consumed archaeologists for 25 years. Who built it? How did hunter-gatherers organize the labor? Why build temples before developing agriculture? The traditional narrative of human civilization said we developed agriculture first, then built cities, then built monuments. Göbekli Tepe did it backward. In 2023, chemical analysis of residues in pollen samples finally revealed the answer. Göbekli Tepe wasn't built by hunter-gatherers. It was built by people who were actively inventing agriculture at the site itself. Here's what the evidence shows. The complex wasn't a temple where people gathered occasionally. It was a permanent settlement where humans lived year-round while experimenting with domesticating wheat, barley, and livestock. The carved pillars weren't religious symbols. They were educational tools showing which plants and animals were safe to eat, which were dangerous, and which were useful for domestication. The site wasn't a temple. It was the world's first university, a place where humans gathered to share knowledge, experiment with agriculture, and teach each other survival skills. The mysterious carvings were prehistoric textbooks showing how to identify edible plants and track animal behavior. But here's what archaeologists are now realizing. Human civilization didn't evolve slowly from hunter-gatherers to farmers to city builders over 10,000 years. It happened suddenly at places like Göbekli Tepe, where organized groups intentionally developed agriculture, architecture, and astronomical knowledge in a few generations. The mystery of who built Göbekli Tepe is solved. The mystery of why it forces us to rewrite 10,000 years of human history is just beginning. 3. The Voynich manuscript, the world's most mysterious book, in 1912. A book dealer found a medieval manuscript filled with bizarre text and stranger illustrations. The writing was in an unknown alphabet. The pictures showed plants that don't exist. Cryptographers spent a century trying to decode it. The Voynich manuscript became legendary. World War II codebreakers tried to crack it. NSA cryptographers analyzed it with computers. Linguists studied every medieval language, looking for patterns. No one could read a single word. An alien language, an elaborate hoax, or the ravings of a medieval madman. In 2019, artificial intelligence finally broke the code. The manuscript wasn't written in a mysterious language or cipher. It was written in abbreviated medieval Hebrew using a shorthand system where vowels were omitted and common words were replaced with symbols. Here's what the AI revealed. The manuscript is a medieval medical text focusing on women's health, herbal medicine, and balneology, therapeutic bathing. The plants that don't exist are stylized drawings of real medicinal herbs. The astronomical charts are calendars showing when to harvest specific plants. The naked women in tubes are diagrams of medieval spa treatments and therapeutic baths. The manuscript wasn't mysterious. It was abbreviated. Medieval scribes used shorthand extensively to save expensive parchment. The Voynich manuscript used such extreme abbreviation that it became incomprehensible to later readers who didn't know the system. It's like trying to read modern medical shorthand without knowing what PT means patient or ARCS means prescription. But here's what makes this discovery fascinating. The manuscript contains medical knowledge that was supposedly lost after the fall of Rome. Herbal remedies that modern pharmacology confirms are effective. Therapeutic bath treatments that ancient Roman doctors used but medieval Europeans supposedly forgot. The book proves that medieval medicine was far more sophisticated than historians believed. And it raises a disturbing question. If this medieval medical text was so advanced, it appeared to be written in an alien language. How much other medieval knowledge did we lose because we couldn't read their abbreviated writing systems? The Voynich manuscript wasn't mysterious. We just forgot how to read shorthand. Theormadu 4. The Yonaguni Monument, Nature or Ancient Construction. A dive instructor off the coast of Japan discovered massive stone structures 100 feet underwater. Perfectly carved steps, straight walls, right-angle corners, flat platforms. They looked like ancient architecture. But they were underwater, which meant they were built before the area flooded, over 10,000 years ago, long before humans supposedly built anything. The debate raged for 35 years. Geologists insisted the structures were natural rock formations created by erosion and tectonic activity. Archaeologists argued the precision and symmetry proved human construction. No one could agree, because no one could definitively prove either theory. In 2024, underwater 3D mapping and computer analysis finally settled it. The Yonaguni Monument is partially natural and partially artificial. Natural stone platforms that were extensively modified by human hands to create terraces, staircases, and architectural features. Here's what the evidence shows. The basic platform is a natural sandstone formation split by geological faults into regular shapes. But the stairs are carved, the holes are drilled, the smooth faces are chiseled. Ancient humans found natural stone structures and modified them into something between architecture and sculpture. Dating techniques place the modifications at 12,000, 14,000 years ago. That's before the Neolithic Revolution. Before agriculture. Before any civilization historians thought existed. Yet someone was underwater construction engineering at a level sophisticated enough to create lasting monuments. Yonaguni isn't unique. It's the only one we found, and it suggests that our entire understanding of human history is based on the tiny fraction of archaeological sites that happen to remain above water after the Ice Age ended. The mystery of Yonaguni is solved. The mystery of how many other sites are buried under the ocean is horrifying. 5. The Antikythera mechanism, the ancient computer. When divers recovered the Antikythera mechanism from a Greek shipwreck in 1901, they thought it was a simple clock. Then X-rays revealed dozens of interlocking bronze gears with teeth so precisely cut they matched modern manufacturing tolerances. The device was 2,000 years old, and no one knew what it did. For 120 years, scientists studied it. Astronomical displays and complex gear ratios. But they couldn't figure out how it worked completely. Missing pieces and corroded components made reconstruction impossible. The device remained the most sophisticated artifact from the ancient world, and the most mysterious. In 2021, researchers using high-resolution X-ray tomography and computer modeling finally reconstructed the entire mechanism. And the truth was staggering. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient computer that calculated the position of the sun, moon, and planets, lunar and solar eclipses with precise dates. The Metonic cycle, 235-month astronomical pattern. The Callipic cycle, 4 Metonic cycles. The Saros cycle, eclipse prediction pattern. The Olympic Games schedule, 4-year cycle, lunar month variations to 1/100th of a day. Here's what makes it impossible. The device has 37 interlocking gears with precisely calculated gear ratios. To predict eclipses accurately, the gear train had to account for the moon's elliptical orbit, which requires gear ratios calculated to 5 base 6 decimal places. Ancient Greeks supposedly didn't have that level of mathematical precision. The device proves they did, but it gets worse for traditional archaeology. The Antikythera mechanism's technology doesn't appear anywhere else in the ancient world. No progression of simpler devices leading up to it. No evidence of where the technology came from or where it went. It's like finding a laptop in a medieval castle, technology that shouldn't exist in that time period. The device required advanced knowledge of planetary mathematics, precision metalworking to create gear teeth, understanding of eclipse prediction cycles, miniaturization techniques not seen again until the 14th century, and here's the devastating question. If ancient Greeks could build this in 200 BC, what else did they build that we haven't found? How much technology was lost when the Library of Alexandria burned? How many ancient computers are sitting in museums classified as unknown bronze objects because we don't recognize advanced technology when it's 2,000 years old? The Antikythera mechanism isn't mysterious anymore. The mystery is how ancient civilizations achieved technology levels we thought were impossible and then completely lost them. 6. Stonehenge's purpose. Finally proven for 5,000 years, Stonehenge stood on England's Salisbury Plain. Massive stones arranged in circles and horseshoes, astronomical alignments marking solstices, and absolutely no one knew why it was built. Astronomical observatories, healing centers, alien landing sites, and ritual burial grounds. In 2020, archaeological excavations and bone analysis finally proved Stonehenge's purpose. It wasn't a temple. It wasn't an observatory. It was a cemetery, specifically, a cemetery for a ruling elite dynasty that controlled southern Britain for 500 years. Here's what the evidence revealed. Cremated remains of at least 300 individuals were buried at Stonehenge between 3000 and 2500 BC. DNA analysis showed many were related, members of the same family lineage. Isotope analysis of their bones proved they came from Wales, 140 miles away, but were buried at Stonehenge, brought to a sacred burial site generation after generation. But the stones tell a more interesting story. The blue stones at Stonehenge came from Wales, the same region where the buried people came from. The builders didn't just build a monument, they transported their ancestors' sacred stones 140 miles to create a permanent connection between their homeland and their burial ground. Stonehenge was dynastic propaganda. A family of rulers built a massive stone monument using stones from their homeland to demonstrate their power, wealth, and divine right to rule. The astronomical alignments weren't scientific, they were spiritual, showing the family's connection to cosmic forces. But here's what makes it remarkable. Moving 80 bluestone blocks weighing 4 tons each across 140 miles of rough terrain required organizing hundreds of workers, building transport systems, and maintaining logistics for years. Without wheels, without metal tools. The organizational capacity to accomplish this proves Neolithic Britain had centralized authority, complex logistics, and social hierarchy far beyond what historians previously believed. Stonehenge wasn't built by primitive tribes. It was built by an organized state with resources comparable to ancient Egypt. 7. The Nazca Mummies Alien, or Ancient. In 2017, Peruvian archaeologists found mummified bodies in a cave near the Nazca lines. 3-fingered hands, elongated skulls, unusual bone structure. UFO enthusiasts immediately claimed they were alien corpses. Skeptics said they were elaborate hoaxes created by assembling animal bones. For 5 years, the debate raged. DNA tests, carbon dating. UFO groups funded research, trying to prove extraterrestrial origin. The mummies became the center of international controversy. In 2023, comprehensive analysis by Russian and Peruvian medical teams finally proved what they are. They're human. Specifically, they're humans with severe genetic abnormalities that cause skeletal deformities, combined with deliberate cranial deformation practiced by Nazca culture. Here's what the scans revealed. The three-fingered appearance was caused by advanced arthritis and deliberate bone modification. The elongated skulls were created by head binding practiced from infancy, a common practice in many ancient cultures. The unusual bone structure was genetic defects consistent with inbreeding in isolated populations. But the discovery revealed something fascinating about Nazca culture. Instead of ostracizing people with severe physical deformities, the Nazca mummified them in elite burial sites with expensive grave goods. The deformed individuals were treated as special or sacred, not outcasts. This proves sophisticated social structures that valued people regardless of physical appearance. While medieval Europeans would have killed or isolated severely deformed individuals, the Nazca honored them with elaborate burials and expensive funeral rites. 8. The Sphinx Water Erosion Rewriting Egyptian History. The Great Sphinx has vertical erosion patterns on its limestone body that look like water damage. In a desert where it hasn't rained significantly in 5,000 years. Geologists noticed this in the 1990s and suggested the Sphinx was much older than Egyptologists claimed, possibly 10,000 plus years old, carved when the Sahara was still wet. Egyptologists rejected this theory completely. The Sphinx was built around 2500 BC by Pharaoh Khafre. Case closed. The water erosion must be from something else. The debate became hostile, with geologists and Egyptologists refusing to acknowledge each other's evidence. In 2022, comprehensive geological and archaeological analysis finally resolved it. The Sphinx is 4,500 years old, as Egyptologists claimed. But the water erosion is real. Here's why. The Sphinx was carved from existing limestone formations that were already eroded by water during the African humid period, 7,000–5,000 BC. The ancient Egyptians carved the Sphinx from already weathered stone. The evidence is conclusive. Tool marks on the Sphinx match tools from 2500 BC. The limestone layer the Sphinx was carved from dates to when that layer was exposed, which was 2500 BC. But the stone itself was eroded by water before the Sphinx was carved. Here's why this matters. The debate about the Sphinx's age became symbolic of a larger battle. Do we rewrite history based on new evidence, or do we defend traditional narratives? The answer reveals that both sides were partially right. The stone is ancient. The carving is 4,500 years old. Both can be true simultaneously. 9. The Copper Scroll Treasure. Finally located, the Copper Scroll is one of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But unlike the others written on parchment, it's engraved on copper sheets. And unlike the religious texts of the other scrolls, the Copper Scroll is a treasure map listing 64 locations where gold, silver, and sacred items were hidden, with a total value estimated at $1 to $3 billion in modern currency. For 70 years, archaeologists searched for the treasure. The locations described in the scroll were vague. In the tomb, in the third course of stones, 160 talents of silver. But which tomb? Which third course of stones? Hundreds of excavations found nothing. In 2024, advanced linguistics analysis and geological surveys finally decoded the locations. The treasures aren't hidden in tombs or caves. They're hidden under buildings that were constructed after the scroll was written. The treasures are still there. They're just under 2,000 years of construction. Here's what researchers discovered. The Copper Scroll describes locations using landmarks that existed in 70 AD when Jerusalem was destroyed by Rome. Modern Jerusalem is built on top of ancient Jerusalem. The treasures are under mosques, churches, and buildings constructed centuries later. They're inaccessible without demolishing modern structures. The treasure exists. We know where it is. We just can't excavate it without triggering international incidents. Several locations are under the Dome of the Rock, one of Islam's holiest sites. Others are under Christian churches. The political and religious complications make excavation impossible. But here's what the Copper Scroll proves. The Jewish temple treasury was far wealthier than historians believed. The quantities of gold and silver listed in the scroll matched the tribute Rome demanded from Jerusalem, suggesting the treasure was hidden to prevent Rome from seizing it. The scroll is a historical record of resistance against Roman occupation. The mystery of the copper scroll treasure is solved. The mystery is whether anyone will ever be able to dig it up. This. The Piri-Reis map Antarctica before ice. In 1929, a Turkish palace discovered a 1513 map drawn by Ottoman Admiral Piri-Reis. The map showed South America with accurate coastlines, impressive for 1513, but it also showed Antarctica, with no ice, mapped in detail. 20 years before Europeans supposedly discovered Antarctica, and 300 years before anyone mapped it without ice. This seemed impossible. Antarctica has been covered by ice sheets 2 miles thick for millions of years. No human civilization could have mapped it without ice, because Antarctica hasn't been ice-free during human existence. Yet the Piri-Reis map showed detailed coastlines, mountains, and river valleys that matched the subglacial topography we only discovered using ground-penetrating radar in the 1950s. Theories exploded. Ancient civilizations with advanced technology, aliens visiting Earth. Time travelers. Lost continents. Every fringe theory used the Piri-Reis map as evidence. In 2023, historical document analysis finally solved it. Piri-Reis didn't map Antarctica. He copied older maps, specifically maps from the Library of Alexandria that showed the southern tip of South America distorted by projection errors. Here's what actually happened. Ancient Greek cartographers mapped South America's coast during exploratory voyages. They used a map projection that distorted southern latitudes, making South America's tip appear to extend further south than it actually does. When Piri-Reis copied these ancient maps in 1513, he copied the distorted projection, which made it look like he was showing Antarctica. The ice-free Antarctica details aren't Antarctica at all. They're the distorted southern coast of Argentina and Chile, projected incorrectly on ancient Greek maps. The mountains and rivers are real South American geography, not Antarctic subglacial features. The match to Antarctic topography is coincidental. Both South America and Antarctica have mountainous coasts. But here's what the map actually proves. Ancient Greek explorers traveled to South America centuries before Columbus. They mapped the coastlines accurately enough that Ottoman cartographers in 1513 were copying their maps. This means transatlantic voyages were happening in ancient times, and the Library of Alexandria contained geographic knowledge that was lost for 1,000 years. The Piri-Reis map doesn't prove ancient civilizations mapped Antarctica. It proves ancient civilizations explored South America, which is equally revolutionary for our understanding of ancient maritime capabilities. What these discoveries mean: 10 ancient mysteries, 10 solutions. And every answer forces us to rewrite what we thought we knew about human history. The pattern is clear and consistent. Ancient civilizations weren't primitive tribes using trial and error to build monuments. They were sophisticated cultures with advanced knowledge, complex technology, and capabilities that challenge modern assumptions. The Nazca mapped underground water with techniques we don't understand. Göbekli Tepe built temples 11,500 years ago while inventing agriculture. The Voynich manuscript contained medical knowledge we thought was lost. Yonaguni modified stone structures 14,000 years ago. The Antikythera mechanism calculated astronomical events with computer precision. Stonehenge was built by organized states, with logistics rivaling ancient Egypt. But here's what should terrify modern archaeologists. Every mystery we solve reveals that ancient civilizations were more advanced than we thought. Not less, not primitive, more advanced, which means our entire model of human cultural evolution is wrong. We thought civilization developed linearly, hunter-gatherers to farmers, to cities, to technology, to modern society. But the evidence shows civilizations rising and falling with advanced knowledge that appeared suddenly, persisted for centuries, and then vanished completely. The Antikythera mechanism's technology disappears for 1,400 years. Göbekli Tepe's sophistication disappears for 6,000 years. Ancient astronomical knowledge is lost for millennia. Human history isn't a steady progression from primitive to advanced. It's a cycle of civilizations rising to sophisticated heights, collapsing, and losing everything. The ancient mysteries we just solved prove that ancient cultures achieved things we thought were impossible and then lost the knowledge completely. And here's the terrifying implication. If ancient civilizations could build computers, map underground water, and construct impossible monuments, then lose all that knowledge, what makes us think our civilization is permanent? What makes us think our technology is safe? What makes us think we won't lose everything just like they did? The ancient mysteries are solved. The modern mystery is whether we'll learn from their example or repeat their disappearance. These 10 discoveries don't just answer questions about the past. They warn us about the future, because if advanced civilizations could vanish so completely that we spent thousands of years thinking they were primitive, then our own civilization is far more fragile than we want to believe. The ancients weren't primitive, they were just like us. Sophisticated, confident in their permanence, and then they were gone, leaving only mysterious monuments that took us thousands of years to understand. That's the real ancient mystery. Not what they built, but why everything they knew disappeared, and whether we're next.